if you've got the money to invest, the best way is total segregation. Realistically, that doesn't happen. So cleaning studies to make sure that you're cleaning appropriately, segregation by distance and time. The standard kind of approach is to allergen management. As long as you know that your cleaning will sufficiently remove the allergenic protein that you're applying to a line, then you should have relative confidence that what you're doing is going to be safe to the end user.
You're listening to Food Tech Talk, Supply Chain Insights from Farm to Fork, a podcast discussing the latest trends and technologies in the food and supplements industries, brought to you by Trustwell, featuring conversations with regulatory experts, quality and safety champions, and thought leaders across the industry. I'm your host, Lydia Adams, VP of Marketing at Trustwell. If you're loving the conversation, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned to the end of the episode where you'll hear our guests tell us their key food industry predictions for 2025. All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to another episode of Food Tech Talk, Supply Chain Insights from Farm to Fork. Today, we're delighted to welcome Steve Warwick, an experienced leader in food safety and quality, currently serving as the head of technical at Bulk. With a diverse background spanning consultancy, technical management, and leadership roles at major food brands, Steve has extensive experience in compliance, allergen management, data integrity, and risk mitigation. His career has taken him through various roles at companies like Aritza, Mueller, and Bakkavor, where he has developed and implemented safety strategies across various sectors. Today, he's at the forefront of ensuring food safety standards that they evolve to meet modern challenges in both traditional and e-commerce food businesses. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Hi, that was a hell of an introduction, wasn't it?
We're glad to have you. So, maybe you can share a little bit more about your journey in food safety and kind of what drew you to this field in the first place.
My dad got me into the industry when I was 19 as a QA manager in the fresh produce industry. And then it kind of went on from there. But growing up, he was always a technical manager for Safeway. So I grew up kind of knowing about the industry. So I did QA manager, then I did a couple of technical manager roles, and then I went traveling. When I came back, that's when I got into consultancy. So I did consultancy for 10 years, mostly in eye care, always where control may have been lost, or if they'd lost a person, as an interim, I'd get asked to go in and stabilize things.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Tell me a little bit about Bulk and what Bulk does and what you do there.
So we do sports nutrition and wellness products across the EU at the moment. It's local to where I live. So when the job came up, I was getting to the end of where I wanted to be in my consultancy career. It was getting tiring. And then this came up and I jumped at the opportunity to throw my knowledge of what I've learned over the last decade into one business.
Awesome. So obviously you've worked in a lot of different areas of food safety. What do you feel like has been the most critical in maintaining food safety at, all of the different companies that you've worked for in the past?
It doesn't matter whether I've been working with sandwiches or ready meals or exotic fruits or pasta pots. Without a robust and working HACCP, everything will fall to pieces. So, they're a legal requirement, obviously, to have a HACCP system in place, but it's how good they are that really makes a difference, and how well monitored, managed, and implemented the controls are thereof.
Yeah, absolutely. Being a leader in this industry, can you point to a pivotal moment in your career or a milestone that really pushed you into that strong leadership role for food safety?
In terms of how I manage and I suppose my attitude to crisis, there was actually a guy that I worked with. I was a technical consultant there and he was a QA manager, I think. And regardless of the issue, regardless of the crisis, he was always calm. And there was something about him I just really liked. And that really changed the way I went on to manage other issues in my career, with a more calm, stable, and level head. So that was probably quite pivotal to.
Yeah, I love that approach. I think that's the first time I've heard that, but I can imagine that helps in any of those kinds of situations to remain calm and level-headed. So, there where you are at Bulk, I think you had said that you just, went up to a, head of technical. So kind of how has your role evolved there?
So when I was head of food safety and quality, like we're just doing the transition now for me to be head of technical. So I look after two sites. So site factory technical and the supplier technical side of things. I have a SQA team, and now we're taking on the regulatory side of things as well. So really end to end owning the four pillars that I call the four pillars of food safety and quality. So that's safety, authenticity, legality, and quality would all fall under me.
So, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've had or that you've faced in your career in terms of food safety and quality?
Directly, the biggest challenge I've had is listeria. That's always thrown up some interesting investigations and issues and whatnot throughout, especially high care. I don't have that issue now with a more low risk product. Culture, I think, is a more broader topic that's been difficult. It used to be technical would take care of things, a visitor would come, an auditor would come, technical would take over. But that kind of culture change and the accountability for individual areas of the business has really pushed, especially by the BRCGS. So that shift change is really taking place now.
Yeah, definitely. And then, in terms of kind of the different places that you've worked where there's more of a traditional manufacturing versus an e-com element, how have you seen the challenges differ?
So I suppose the manufacturing side of things is no different. You're still in a factory, you're still making things. But then it comes to the e-com side, especially when it's you're a brand, everything is managed in-house. So you're not selling a product to a customer to their specification that then goes on to the end user. You're selling to the end user. They are your customers. And it's your product with your branding and your claims and you're just in complete control of everything. So that's the biggest difference, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. And, you mentioned regulatory as well. And with food safety regulations, they're constantly evolving. What strategies do you use to ensure that you stay compliant and also manage efficiency at the same time?
So the guys do a lot of horizon scanning. That's a big part of their role. And managing the efficiencies with the changing regs is that proactive approach. So seeing things that are coming up, making changes before they come into place so that you're kind of hitting the ground running rather than hit a brick wall at the end where the changes already come in and you're potentially no longer legal. So yeah, it's the proactive approach that the regs team here take.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And what are some, I guess, common mistakes that you've seen made, in the industry and in terms of implementing compliance measures?
Is waiting too long. It's not acting not acting when you first see changes coming up and then running into areas where you've potentially got illegal product on the market. It doesn't happen often because most companies have got this fairly well down, but it can do. So yeah, again, it's not being reactive, it's being proactive.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, data quality and data integrity is another, I guess, pitfall, or it can be. It's critical for food safety. So, what steps can companies really take to ensure that their data is reliable and accurate and reflective of their food safety culture?
So we have really good IT security and infrastructure in place. So anything that we have recorded on the system is very well secured and locked down. But when it comes to accuracy of any results, I suppose, I don't know if you're talking about lab results and the reliability of those, or I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, kind of just like across the board, I think we all rely on data, right? So however that's being used and it is, reliable data. So yeah.
Yeah. So making sure that the data that we've got is reliable is it's obviously pivotal to what we do. So I suppose that falls under supply management as well. So we audit nigh on every supplier that we use, whether it's a service or an ingredient or anything. So the labs would need to be UCAS accredited over here. I don't know if it's a different standard in the States, but they have to adhere to a certain standard for us to trust the results that they're giving us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And how do you guys use technology to sort of help with that? Or, what type of technology do you have for food safety and quality in general?
So last year we changed our ERP system. So now a lot more of what we do is on the system rather than paper-based. I think that's been, when I started 20 years ago, there was very little computers. It was all written down, so things could get lost or written down incorrectly. So the progression in kind of IT and having things more based on the system has been like a massive benefit, especially to traceability.
Yeah, I think it's definitely key, and as we've seen in the past couple of years and then moving towards the future, like, it almost feels like it's not gonna be possible to keep that, pen and paper approach any longer, for a lot of people.
Well, I've looked at a couple of companies that are offering everything on iPads, and everything's got their software for and the things like internal audits as well. So I think there will be a change where there will be no paper. The offices that we work in are actually paperless, so I'm sure the factory will be soon as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely wanted to talk to you about allergen management. It's a huge concern for the industry. What do you feel like are the best practices to make sure that there's minimizing risks and improving consumer safety in terms of allergens and labeling?
Well, if you've got the money to invest, the best way is total segregation. So if you do have the funds to build a separate nut building or something, then that's great. Realistically, that doesn't happen. Cleaning studies to make sure that you're cleaning appropriately, segregation by distance and time. The standard kind of approaches to allergen management. Yeah, I think as long as you know that you're cleaning will sufficiently remove the allergenic protein that you're applying to a line, then you should have relative confidence that what you're doing is going to be safe to the end user.
Yeah, and I feel like this is also an area that has evolved. Like, what have you seen maybe change within allergen management in the past couple of decades?
I think that maybe the biggest change is we're kind of moving towards a time where we have alibi labels and we say this may contain this, that, and the other. The pressure's kind of on now to minimize those because they've been a bit of a safety net. So you've got Vital and even the WHO have got thresholds for allergens now, whereby when you're doing your cleaning validation, you can use these thresholds as a limit to remove allergen alibi labeling.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think it's just to see kind of like the emphasis is so important, on allergens now. I'm glad that we're moving that way as an industry for sure. Um, so, now looking ahead, I mean, what do you think is going to be kind of the big food safety innovation in the future in the next 5, 10 years plus? Like, what are you thinking we're headed towards as an industry?
But everything's got to be robots and it'll all be AI, won't it? I'm not an expert in the AI field at all, but I have read a couple of things on the way it can optimize storage, the way it can minimize food waste through shelf life and demand planning. I think the potential for use there is incredible, especially AI in farming. That's already being used. Like I saw something recently, the paddy fields growing rice, they can remove so much of the water, so they can prevent that, but still have good crops coming out of the field. So AI is going to be the future, that's for sure.
Yeah, I know there's, just so many implications of that. And, I think that moving forward, it's going to be a huge help for us in terms of everything from food safety, quality, allergens, like all of that. So, yeah, totally agree with you. That is definitely probably the thing we'll see the most. So, and we talked about this a little bit, but I feel like I wanted to revisit e-commerce because I feel like it kind of presents some different risks from maybe a traditional food business. And so, what do companies need to prioritize to maintain safety and quality when we're looking at an online food supply chain, and how can they, rise to that challenge?
I still go to site. There's still two factories. The e-com side of things is in our headquarters in London. So we have 3 sites. The factories still produce the same way as they would do if we were supplying the major multiples. But yeah, it's the education, I think, of the business in the e-com side of things. So the rules aren't necessarily there. So if I was supplying one of the major supermarkets in the UK, which is Tesco, I would be adhering to their rules. I would be writing what they tell me to write. Whereas when you're doing e-com and it's your own brand, you do all that yourself. So it's making sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed. I think that could be a major slip up, especially with food safety and legality. Again, back to allergens, you have to declare those correctly on the website. Claims have to be backed up, and you have to do all that in-house.
Yeah, and I think there's kind of an expectation with e-com about, getting things faster, getting them delivered to you. So, how have you seen this balance between kind of like going to market quickly with a product, but then also ensuring that it has, all of those things listed and it has the allergens in it and it shows, everything on the label. Like, have you seen that kind of balance out of speed versus quality?
Yeah, but look, we got a good supply chain team and a great logistics department. So between those departments and myself, when it comes to launching products or getting products out to market, we work well together. So we have an external in the UK. We have an external distributor that we produce in Colchester, where I am now. We send to the distributor, and that's ready to be picked for customer orders. But the speed of that is based on forecast. So we know which products to be building and when to have them ready for customers to take them up. And the other with sports nutrition, the other kind of challenge is that there's a lot of discount pricing and a lot of time of year where there's sales on. So the forecast is very, very variable. So yeah, it's just keeping on top of that.
Yeah, I would imagine you have additional seasonality. People really wanting to get started on their fitness journeys and stuff at the beginning of the year versus like the holidays or something like that.
Yeah. January is a big one. Black Friday is a big one. And we also do we do our birthday celebration as well. So that's another big peak time.
Cool. Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned food safety culture earlier, what key strategies do you think are like essential to build a strong food safety culture within an organization?
I think I have been, maybe I'm guilty of being a bit bullish with this in some of my contracts that I've had, whereby I no longer accept that technical will be around to clean up messes and take audits on their own and whatnot. I really do push accountability to the owners of individual areas. And that can sometimes be, I suppose, a difficult pill to swallow because it's been a major change in recent years that's the case. But to create that buy-in has been something that I've learned being an interim mostly, because you're in a contract for a short amount of time. You need to create buy-in with different departments very quickly, and you need to make changes quickly because that's what you're there for. So yeah, I suppose people management has been a big part of that. Just allowing people to take responsibility of their areas rather than, production aren't just producing, they're producing their product in their facility. And it's just changing that focus, I think, has really bettered some of our relationships.
Yeah, I think accountability is really key. And I love this idea of rather than having food safety kind of in its own little segment over here, it's like it's kind of everyone's responsibility, right? Like they have to own it within their departments as well. Have you seen that play out as well with supplier management? Because you kind of mentioned that too. And how do you keep suppliers also accountable in addition to internal teams?
Obviously, they're all around the world, and so they can be some are more difficult to manage than others. But we've got a really robust supply management system, and it hasn't let us down. If there are issues, we raise them with the supplier. We get results and non-conformances, and we get corrective action, preventive actions. It's been a challenge with some, especially with time differences, like this now. But no, it's generally it's been quite good.
And we like to talk about this a lot here on the show too. What are your food safety or food industry overall predictions for 2025? I know we talked about AI, and that was kind of for the future, but what about this year?
I think we've kind of been moving in the right direction with things like regenerative farming and things like that. But waste reduction, packaging reduction, I think that needs to get a bit of a kick up the bum again now. The ball was rolling, and then COVID came and things kind of closed down, I think, quite a lot. So some focus on that again would be good. I think we need to start making those differences shine.
And what advice would you give to a future leader in food safety, maybe someone coming up in the industry, who's looking to really get to where you are today?
Embrace the moments where you lose control, because they'll be your greatest learning opportunities.
Amazing. I think I only have one more question for you, which is really, What do you think of as your legacy? What do you want to leave to the field of the food industry, food safety and quality?
What do I want them to write on my tombstone?
What do you want your legacy to be,
I'd like to be known as a very commercially driven technical expert. I've seen the technical arena, we get like a bad rep for being very black and white and kind of blockers to things, but you can use technical knowledge to actually be a massive facilitator and a benefit to the business. And I have strived to do that in all of my placements and now with Bulk as well. So I'd like to be remembered for that.
Well, thanks, Steve. Really appreciate you coming on the show, and thanks to our audience for joining us. And don't miss an episode, so make sure that you subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for another bite-sized nugget of Food Tech Talk, supply chain insights from farm to fork. Make sure to subscribe, and if you love the podcast, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. To learn more about Trustwell and request your free demo of our technology platform that connects food formulation, products, nutrition analysis, and compliant labeling with traceability, recall readiness, and supply chain transparency, please visit us at www.trustwell.com and click Get Started or click the link in the show notes to learn more. Thanks for listening.